corps, elle s'abandonne dans la nuit. Ses mains glissent entre son corps. Ses lèvres rouges, ses yeux velours. Le regard est ébloui. La magie tombe dans la nuit.
Paris, Part 1. See Paris and fall in love. Almost everyone has heard this famous saying, but perhaps not everyone knows its origin. It was popularized by Ilya Ehrenberg, the well-known publicist and connoisseur of France, changed one word in the aphorism, thereby giving life to a new one. At the beginning of the 20th century, Ehrenberg decided to take photographs of Paris and its ordinary residents with a hidden camera to convey the authenticity of the French capital. From the photos of this elegant city, besides the refined beauty, emanated the elusive radiance without which our lives seem gray and mundane. Paris exuded a dream. Presumably, this is why it is often called Ville Luminaire, which translates to City of Light. Yes, you can visit the best capitals in the world and marvel at their uniqueness. However, a journey to Paris fills a traveler's heart with special, tender feelings. It's like the desire to quench your thirst, often being tastier than the actual sip of spring water. No one can truly describe Paris with words. It is difficult to find a definition for its allure, its incomprehensible wonder, and its multifaceted nature. Paris must simply be seen. We hope that our video journey through the French capital will be a small window through which you can glimpse at least a tiny part of its unique charm. The founding of Paris dates back to the 3rd century BCE. It was then that the Celtic Parisi tribes built a settlement called Parisia on the Ile de la Cité, which gradually transformed into Paris. In 52 BCE, the warlike Romans, driven by the idea of expanding and strengthening their empire, burned Parisia and rebuilt the city in their own style. As a result, in the territory of modern Paris, aqueducts, baths, an amphitheater, and a forum appeared almost simultaneously with those in Rome. The Franks were displeased with this, and at the end of the 4th century, they besieged Parisia. The exhausting conflict lasted 10 years. The Franks had the courage, perseverance, and strategic calculations to break the resistance. In the early 5th century, the defeated city became the capital of the Merovingian state and was named Paris. It must be said that medieval Paris made a rather depressing impression. In the city yards and its outskirts, domestic poultry and livestock were openly kept, with pigs scavenging for food in the middle of the city, since all the trash and food waste was thrown directly onto the streets. Sewage flowed over the cobblestones, straight into the Seine. Residential areas housed slaughterhouses, tanneries, dye workshops, forges, and meat and fish markets. As a result, Paris was dirty and foul-smelling. During dry summers, the city was suffocating due to dust, and during rain, the streets turned into a swamp. The absolute lack of sanitation in Paris led to numerous epidemics, and hunger was a common occurrence for the poor Parisians. French historians unanimously assert that all French kings should be nicknamed blind, deaf, and lazy. They moved from one luxurious palace to another, cared only about their own enrichment and domestic luxury. Royal power often fell into the hands of mayors of the palace, the so-called trustees in state affairs, who were indifferent to what happened beyond their own doorstep. We should remember that since its founding, Paris lived in a rhythm of constant wars, political conflicts, and changing alliances, endured a terrifying plague epidemic, and the St. Bartholomew's Day Massacre. There was no strength left to clean the streets. Napoleon appeared in French history during an extremely difficult time. Total collapse of statehood, open civil conflicts accompanied by a terrible standard of living, and the former royal treasury was emptied. The inhabitants of Paris, like all French people, dreamed only of one thing: to have a piece of bread. We deliberately leave out the analytical digging regarding Napoleon's influence on French and European history of the 19th century. The first and last French emperor was a complex and very interesting figure, undoubtedly of global significance. His legacy is multifaceted, just like the multifaceted world around us. It would be unfair and wrong to reduce Bonaparte's activities to any single aspect. But that was never our goal. Most tourists claim that Paris is the most romantic city. There are no grounds to argue. Surprisingly, even today, the stereotype persists that all people do here is drink coffee with crispy pastries and stroll near the Eiffel Tower in white gloves with a pink umbrella. This couldn't be further from the truth. Let's say even more. It's categorically untrue. Paris is a modern metropolis with a powerful geopolitical resource, and its socio-economic component is one of the most developed in Europe. The capital is a separate department of France with a population of nearly 2.5 million. Paris is home to the headquarters of several international organizations, such as UNESCO, the International Chamber of Commerce, and the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development. It must also be acknowledged that Paris has not lost its status as the cultural capital of the world, and seems to have all the chances to retain it in the foreseeable future. Paris acquired its modern appearance in the mid-19th century as a result of a grand restructuring. Old and dilapidated buildings were demolished. The urban landscape was radically changed. Narrow streets were replaced with wider ones, and space was cleared for avenues with stone buildings in the neoclassical architectural style. Through superhuman efforts, France transformed its long-suffering Paris into a city where it became easier to breathe in both literal and metaphorical senses. The capital shook off its torpor, and then it elegantly dressed up, smiled, and began to radiate that very brilliance we talked about. There is so much of it accumulated that it will last for everyone and for a long time. This is something you can and should believe in. Paris today is Paris. It's so diverse. It's characterized by the hustle and bustle of a big modern city. Yet at the same time, the French capital hides cozy corners for pleasant solitude. Pedestrians on the streets are no different from those you're used to seeing in your own country. Paris speaks not only in French, but also speaks to the heart. The only thing that immediately catches the eye is the incredible number of tourists. For some of them, Paris is the treasures of the Louvre. For others, it's the Gothic reflections of Notre Dame. Some go crazy for French perfumes, while others are satisfied with a simple stroll along the nighttime streets and an unforgettable selfie against the backdrop of the Eiffel Tower. But whatever tourists may admire or be interested in, everything without exception can be found only in Paris. A city of fleeting sadness, romance, and quiet joys amidst the astonishing splendor of landmarks. When talking about tourist Paris, there's no need for metaphorical language or complex stylistic figures. You just need to go there. Everyone. Today or tomorrow. In the rain, heat, or cold. You simply have to go. And there are several reasons for this. Among the first is the city's exquisite architectural palette, which demands honest admiration from even the most discerning fans with unique tastes. The Moulin Rouge, the Arc de Triomphe, Versailles, Place de la Concorde, the Luxembourg Gardens, and the Champs-Élysées each have fantastic stories behind every stone. In addition, you'll hear impressive Parisian legends from a tour guide you're sure to be lucky to meet. In Paris, you'll enjoy oysters in a cozy restaurant, wine with cheese, delicious baguette bread, astonishing carefree vibes, and countless photos. In the French capital, your head will spin from everything you see, hear, and feel. And it will never be enough. While planning a video journey through Paris, we were surprised to realize how difficult it is to choose the most memorable places that every tourist or visitor to the city should see. That's because Paris itself is one continuous attraction of France. It serves as the calling card of Europe and will never lose its tourist appeal. All of Paris is made up of small, winding, cobblestone streets. As you stroll through them, it's quite easy to get lost. However, there's no need to worry. Each of these streets will always lead you to the city center. And before your eyes will appear the unparalleled Louvre. The Louvre in Paris once served as the residence of French kings, and today it stands as an outstanding monument of French history and architecture. It is also considered the most visited tourist destination in the world, with over 10 million people annually eager to see the Louvre. Today, this unique Parisian landmark is the most famous museum in the world. Its exhibition halls display nearly 35,000 items, from the prehistoric period to the 19th century. The permanent collection is housed over an area of more than 780,000 square feet. The museum's total inventory comprises about 380,000 items. Approximately 90% of all the Louvre's exhibits are almost constantly in storage due to a lack of display space. The museum's collection spans 4 buildings, and it is impossible to see everything in just a day or 2. Of course, many tourists are drawn to the Louvre by the Mona Lisa, the most valuable painting in the world. This masterpiece, created by Leonardo da Vinci several centuries ago, is housed in a separate exhibition hall, protected by thick, bulletproof glass against unforeseen risks. The patience and perseverance of tourists before the Louvre is truly admirable. To get inside, they usually have to wait in a huge line, often for several hours. The museum has been open to visitors since the late 18th century. Today, it is the richest in the world in terms of its exhibition. In its time, the Louvre's structure was far from being an art museum. It was a watchtower overlooking the lowlands of the Seine River, as attacks on France often came from there. The name Louvre translates to barrier, meaning something that closes or protects. In 1190, King Philip Augustus built a palace fortress on this watchtower site and named it the Grand Louvre. Successive rulers rebuilt it to their tastes. In 1682, Louis XIV chose Versailles as his residence, while the Louvre remained a place to display the royal collection of artworks. In 1791, after the French Revolution, the National Assembly decided that the Louvre Palace should serve as a museum exhibiting national masterpieces. The Louvre officially opened as a museum on August 10, 1793. At that time, 537 paintings were displayed, most of which were confiscated royal and church property. During Napoleon's time, the collection significantly increased, and the museum was named after the emperor. After Napoleon's defeat at Waterloo, many looted artworks were returned to their previous owners. Acquisitions increased under the reigns of Louis XVIII and Charles X. And during the Second French Empire, the museum received about 20,000 new exhibits. Over time, the collections continually expanded through donations and gifts from collectors, patrons, and philanthropists. The Louvre is a masterpiece that transcends time and space. If you want to experience the culture and art of different countries but can't visit them, you should go to the Louvre. The museum boasts not only an art gallery with famous paintings by masters from Italy, France, Germany, Spain, Holland, and Flanders of the 17th century, but also a diverse collection of artworks, categorized by schools, materials, techniques, and styles. The highlights of the Louvre include Leonardo's Mona Lisa, David's The Coronation of Napoleon and Josephine, Michelangelo's Slaves, the sculptures of Venus de Milo, Winged Victory of Samothrace, Cupid, and Psyche, and many other masterpieces that constitute the world heritage of visual arts. The Louvre has so many halls and corridors that it is easy to get lost despite signs in many languages. The Louvre administration has developed a smartphone app that helps visitors navigate the museum and serves as a pocket guide, providing lots of interesting information about all the exhibits. Only the first 2 floors of the Louvre's main building have museum status. The other parts are used for administrative purposes. The French Ministry of Finance, the Louvre School, and the Central Council of Decorative Arts are housed there. Besides art enthusiasts, the Louvre is also very popular among budding artists. The museum administration kindly allows them to come with their easels and work directly in the museum halls. And this is completely free of charge. How wonderful is that? Who wouldn't want to improve their skills surrounded by world masterpieces? The glass pyramid in front of the Louvre was built in 1989 by the American architect and Pritzker Prize laureate I.M. Pei. This transparent pyramidal creation near the Louvre is undoubtedly a modern structure amidst historical facades. We all associate Egypt with enormous pyramids, where ancient Egyptians honorably buried their pharaohs. But when you hear about a pyramid in the middle of Paris, it's natural to become a bit surprised. Nevertheless, the Louvre's glass pyramid has quickly become one of the most famous landmarks in the French capital. Its original design has sparked aesthetic disagreements, with many opponents among Parisians themselves. In short, the pyramid has been the subject of heated debates and discussions. In the 1970s, the number of tourists constantly grew, and the entrances to the Louvre were too narrow and cramped. Additionally, they were so confusing that museum visitors could easily get lost within the medieval structure. The glass pyramid was constructed as part of a project to expand and modernize the Louvre. The American architect of Chinese descent conducted planned excavations in the Cour Napoleon, the central part of the Louvre. It was then that Pei decided to create an underground lobby leading to the three wings of the museum, conveniently housing ticket offices, shops, and restaurants, thereby easily solving the issue of accessing the Louvre. Pei did not want the main entrance to resemble a metro station, so he discreetly began working on a bold avant-garde project. Thus, the glass pyramid was erected in the middle of the Louvre. Pei explained that his choice of modernism was intended to create an original portal that would attract museum visitors at first glance. Indeed, the glass pyramid has become a true beacon in the Cour Napoleon. Its design height is 72 feet, and the base area is 377 square feet. This functional glass decoration consists of 673 segments made of bulletproof glass, 0.8 inches thick. The Chinese architect was a staunch perfectionist. One pyramid wasn't enough for him. The Parisian glass landmark is surrounded by three smaller pyramids. Decorative pools with modern fountains complete the vision of the talented and daring architect. Conservative Parisians were not thrilled with a structure that created a strong contrast with Paris's historical facades. They jokingly call it the aquarium. The Louvre pyramid has had a controversial architectural fate. However, now 34 years later, the modern glass structure is considered an iconic symbol of the French capital, though, according to surveys, many French citizens are still opposed to the pyramid. Since the glass replica of Khufu's tomb opened to visitors, 9 million people pass through it annually. And you know, they all stand in long lines for hours to enter this mysterious building. The pyramid's popularity skyrocketed after the publication and film adaptation of Dan Brown's The Da Vinci Code. It seems that the fictional story overshadowed the fame of architect I.M. Pei. Whether this is true or not is up for you to decide. But for that, you'll have to visit Paris and its unrivaled Louvre. And now you know all about it, including the glass pyramid. The Latin Quarter is the oldest student district in Paris, having grown around the Sorbonne University. The university was named after Robert de Sorbonne, the spiritual mentor of King Louis IX, who founded the institution in 1253. For a long time, Cardinal Richelieu served as the rector of the Sorbonne, and his marble tomb can still be found in one of the university's buildings. In the Middle Ages, instruction at the university was conducted in Latin, which is where the quarter gets its name. Today, the Latin Quarter includes not only the Sorbonne, but also other prestigious French higher education institutions, such as the Pierre and Marie Curie University. The heart of the quarter lies between the sun and the colleges that once clustered on the slopes of Montant Sainte-Geneviève, now crowned by the Pantheon. Initially, the Parisian Pantheon was named after Geneviève, but it was later renamed and became the main burial site for notable figures of France. The first to be buried there were Voltaire, Rousseau, Mirabeau, and the French Revolution hero Marat. Near the Pantheon is a multi-story house with a glass dome and a winter garden where Alain Delon himself lives on the top floor. The most bustling area of the Latin Quarter is the Place Saint-Michel, from which the boulevard of the same name begins. A 5-minute walk from Place Saint-Michel is the National Museum of the Middle Ages, whose garden features the walls of ancient Roman baths, a reminder of the Romans' presence in Paris. The Latin Quarter is known for its unique atmosphere of narrow, old streets filled with numerous cafes and bistros, cozy parks, and countless bookstores. For instance, Rue du Chat qui Pêche is considered the narrowest street in Paris. Rue de la Huchette is known for housing the Théâtre de la Huchette, where it is considered lucky to get a ticket. On Rue de la Harpe, the Duke of Buckingham once hid before a rendezvous with a queen, where he was captured by D'Artagnan. So Dumas didn't make it all up. Much of it happened right here. Unfortunately, the house was demolished during a renovation. One of the main and most outstanding attractions of the Latin Quarter is the famous Luxembourg Gardens. We will definitely visit there. This unique palace and park ensemble in Paris was once home to Queen Marie de' Medici in its luxurious palace. In the Latin Quarter, we must also mention the favorite spot for lovers, the square René Viviani near Saint-Julien-les-Pauvres. It's a delightful place to relax and enjoy a real French baguette with ham and delicate salad leaves. The square is famous for having the oldest tree in Paris, a false acacia, or robinia, planted in 1602. Despite its age, the tree blooms every year, filling the Latin Quarter with fragrance. This 500-year-old acacia is also called the Paris Tree of Luck. According to legend, it brings good fortune to anyone who gently strokes its bark. Guess who frequents the acacia the most? Correct, students. Smiling and carefree, they rush past it to take exams at the Sorbonne. To ensure success, students race to hug the legendary tree. Nearby is another notable attraction of the Latin Quarter, a small bookstore, Shakespeare and Company, founded by writer and publisher Sylvia Beach in 1919. An interesting and useful detail: the bookstore stays open until late at night, and if you're an aspiring writer, you might be able to stay in the upstairs rooms for a few days. But not for free. You must work in the store. It might not seem surprising, but above the entrance, the bookstore has a sign that reads, "Be not inhospitable to strangers, lest they be angels in disguise." Quite a good recommendation, isn't it? This special literary salon is never overlooked by writers and poets. They highly respect the unspoken professional rule: if you want to be known worldwide, buy a book here and have a cup of coffee. Ernest Hemingway used to frequent the bookstore. His contemporaries claim that he finally chose the title for one of his novels at Shakespeare and Company. What was the novel called, you ask? The answer is clear: A Movable Feast. Enigmatic Paris wouldn't be the same without the Luxembourg Garden. It is one of the most renowned palace and park ensembles in Paris, situated in the Latin Quarter of the French capital. This is a true paradise and the favorite leisure spot for both the French and the guests of their beautiful city. People come here to enjoy leisure time with friends, admire the luxurious blooming flower beds, and the exquisite sculptures and fountains remind everyone that all this beauty is in Paris. The illustrious woman who conceived the idea of creating such a park wonder aimed to bestow her creation with a magical sense of happiness and inner harmony. The history of the Luxembourg Garden dates back to 1611 and is closely linked to the famous Italian queen, Marie de' Medici. Being in what was then considered the barbaric France and missing her civilized Italy, her homeland, the queen would come here to dispel her sadness. In 1612, she ordered the construction of a magnificent palace, modeled after the Pitti Palace in Florence, on 26 hectares of unrivaled park beauty. The majestic Luxembourg Palace was built. It became Marie de' Medici's second home after Italy. The widowed queen fondly remembered the landscapes of her beloved Tuscany and the famous Boboli Gardens in Florence. That is why she ordered the planting of a large number of trees around the new palace, and the creation of large terraced flower beds with striking flowers. Let's admire the Luxembourg garden together. Let's sit on the chairs by the fountain, listen to the quiet conversation of the old plane trees, and examine the unique sculptures among the lace of flowers in the flower beds near the magnificent palace. Bright floral borders frame the green lawns with soft ribbons, and the colors of the blooms impress with their volumes and color palette. Petunias, rudbeckias, sage, dahlias, chrysanthemums. For original decorative effect, gardeners change the plant species in each flower bed 3 times a year. From spring to autumn, they add orange trees, date palms, pomegranates, oleanders, planted in large wooden tubs. In the cold season, the heat-loving trees are carefully moved to the greenhouses. Neat lawns are a sacred rule and the main law of the local horticulture. They are all of proper geometric shapes and perfectly trimmed. Let's go down to the upper terrace of the park, richly decorated with flowering plants. From there, an incredible panorama of the entire Luxembourg garden opens up, revealing its impeccable landscape line. Not far from the garden gates is the music pavilion. Professional masters, as well as aspiring actors, perform on the open stage platform. There are always applause and a festive atmosphere here. Thematic concerts, theatrical performances, and various photo exhibitions are often organized for everyone interested on the exterior fence of the pavilion. Additionally, a professional puppet theater operates in the park area for children. The little ones are delighted with the antique carousel and modern swings. But getting inside the Luxembourg Palace is no easy task. Its doors are open to tourists only on heritage days. Tours of this historical and architectural monument are not prohibited, but strictly regulated. Prior registration and full payment are welcome. If you're lucky, you'll see the palace interiors. They are breathtaking with their splendor. The floors in all the palace halls are covered with carpets to protect the ancient parquet. And everything else literally shines with continuous gliding and graceful Baroque patterns. This is how Queen Maria de' Medici lived amid this incredible luxury. Perhaps the largest number of tourists is noticeable at the fountain named in her honor. It is the most important decorative element of the architectural appearance of the entire garden space, and the most romantic place in Paris. The aesthetic power of the Medici fountain is already in its location. You have to walk leisurely along the shady garden alley to reach it. Everyone who has walked along it says they didn't want to talk at all, just be silent. Words lost their meaning. At some point halfway, it may seem that it is here, at the Medici fountain in the Luxembourg garden, that something will finally happen that will fundamentally change life for the better. It's hard to call the beautiful grotto composition with a basin just a fountain. Its plastic sculptures are a preserved part of royal life, a symbol of the frozen-in-stone sorrow, the tears of which never dried for Queen Maria de' Medici. Parisian's favorite spot still holds many memories of romantic dates, warm embraces, passionate kisses, and sincere confessions. And it's no wonder. How can one restrain feelings in such a romantic atmosphere? Hence, there is no counting the fervent words of lovers who came here to say them. Elsewhere, they lost their meaning and sounded unconvincing. It was here, in 1911, that the little-known Italian artist Amedeo Modigliani nervously uttered, "I love you," to the great poetess Anna Akhmatova. The Luxembourg Garden is a true gem of Paris. It offers the opportunity to thank the past, realize the present, and dream peacefully about the future. Amid its harmonious beauty, there is an incomparable lightness, a desire to love the whole world and be filled with feelings sung only in French poetry. Among both Parisians and tourists, there exists another lovely romantic tradition. If you arrange a rendezvous at this spot, relationships will be robust, and for the married, family bliss will overflow. This is the Alexander III Bridge. The most apt descriptor for this bridge is elegance. Constructed in the Art Nouveau style, it is adorned with sculptures of nymphs, winged horses, and sailing ships. Antique 17-meter lanterns line the railings, adding to its elegance. Bronze figures symbolizing architecture, arts, protection, and victory tower above them. The bridge is skillfully adorned with molding. On each side stand pylons, allegorically representing different eras: Louis XIV and the Renaissance on the left, and the Middle Ages and modern France on the right. The Alexander Bridge in Paris stands as one of the world's most adorned bridges. Statues crafted from gold, bronze, copper, and stone clearly underscore its unique Parisian style. The Alexander III Bridge spans the Seine's banks in the heart of Paris, connecting the Champs-Élysées and the Hôtel des Invalides. Today, this arched vehicular bridge stands as one of the capital's landmarks. Combining several architectural styles, it is rightly considered a prime example of eclecticism, guided by the rule of harmonious aesthetics. Perhaps that's why the Alexander III Bridge is hailed as the finest among the 18 others in the French capital. The bridge's construction history is closely intertwined with the Russian Empire. To strengthen the political alliance between the two states, the idea arose to build a symbolic bridge in Paris. In 1896, Russian Emperor Nicholas II, during his visit to France, laid the first stone in its foundation. Construction lasted 4 years. It was assumed the bridge would be named in honor of the reigning emperor of Russia. French astonishment knew no bounds when Nicholas II categorically refused the offered honor. Instead, he wished for the Parisian bridge to immortalize the memory of his late father, Alexander III. The French side had no objections. Thus, Paris acquired a bridge with a Russian accent. Interestingly, construction of its twin brother, the Trinity Bridge in St. Petersburg, began simultaneously. Diplomats did an excellent job. The designers were French. However, they decided not to experiment with a name in the northern capital. The grand opening of the Alexander III Bridge in Paris was marked by special splendor. But what amazed most was the construction itself. Before the eyes of astonished Parisians appeared a true architectural masterpiece. Its width was 131 feet, the span of the arch, 351 feet, and the length, 525 feet. By the way, the height of the Alexander Bridge at 20 feet is not accidental. At the time of construction, it became a unique achievement of engineering thought. An extra meter in height could block the central street of the city, the Champs-Élysées. Such a scenario was unacceptable for Paris. The beauty and sophistication of every line of the Alexander III Bridge, the artistic execution of each element and detail, impressed even the most fastidious and meticulous French. The bridge immediately appealed to Parisians and has since become the adornment of the capital. Its architectural concept embodies the most important stylistic decision: a bridge radiant in every sense of the word. The structure truly radiates extremely positive energy. Almost everyone is convinced of this. Only under one condition: you need to be here in Paris. At night, when all the original lighting is turned on, the Alexander Bridge looks incomparable. Such a fantastic spectacle evokes a wave of sincere admiration. Interestingly, there are usually more tourists near it at night. They understand well that at this time, traffic decreases. Then the handsome bridge wearily freezes and allows you to look at it unhindered until morning. Heading from the Louvre towards the Tuileries Garden, you'll immediately spot a grand arc. It's practically impossible to miss. In Paris, it's known as the Triumphal Arc. This majestic monument has loomed over the Champs-Élysées for over 187 years. If viewed from a bird's-eye perspective, the arch serves as the symbolic center of a star, with 12 streets radiating outwards like rays. Until 1970, this square was called L'Étoile Square, meaning starry. In the mid-19th century, Paris prefect Georges-Eugène Haussmann redesigned Paris to offer unique perspectives for both the French and guests of the capital from different parts of the city. The Triumphal Arch, as a historical landmark of the French capital, is meant to commemorate the victories of one of the world's greatest military leaders, Napoleon Bonaparte. The idea for its construction emerged in 1806 after Napoleon's resounding victories, which led to the expansion of France's territory. The arch symbolized the invincibility of the Golden Army of the Emperor. A rather truthful legend tells that the day after the French army's victory in Austerlitz, Napoleon addressed his soldiers, saying that after such a glorious battle, they should only return home through the Triumphal Arch. Architect Jean-François Chalgrin immediately developed a design for its construction. He was always inspired by the triumphal arches of ancient Rome, which were erected in honor of significant events and outstanding individuals. 2 months later, orders were issued to commence construction. The first stone was laid in the arch's foundation on August 15, 1807. Napoleon did it personally, on his birthday. Construction began literally the next day. However, progress was erratic, with several interruptions, and was ultimately left to fate. 1814 marked the end of Napoleon's rule. After the return to power of the Bourbon dynasty, the construction of the Triumphal Arch, which was supposed to glorify France's first and last emperor, was definitively halted. Construction resumed only 8 years later during the reign of King Louis-Philippe. Although the king sympathized with Napoleon, ideological principles had shifted. Now, the Triumphal Arch was meant to symbolize the victory of the French Republic over the Kingdom of Spain. Radical French patriots said no. In 1830, a compromise was reached. The arch was to symbolize the greatness and courage of the French army during the Napoleonic Wars and the independent republic simultaneously. Construction of the arch finally concluded in 1836, and its grand opening took place. Meanwhile, on the island of St. Helena, isolated from the world, Napoleon seemed to await the construction of the Triumphal Arch by his compatriots. But he never got to see his creation. It wasn't meant to be. Only 19 years later, grateful Frenchmen solemnly carried his remains under the arch. The emperor could no longer see that the bas-reliefs of the majestic structure recounted his victories in 30 of the greatest battles. Now the arch houses a small museum where one can learn about the arch's construction, the history of Napoleonic France, and the names of famous individuals who had the honor of passing through it ceremoniously. In 1920, a tomb was erected here for the unknown soldier. The tomb bears a very eloquent and meaningful inscription. Here lies a soldier who gave his life for the fatherland. 187 years have passed since the construction of the Triumphal Arch. It is visited by numerous tourists daily. At a height of 164 feet, there is an observation deck. Be sure to ascend it. Before your eyes will unfold Paris in all its beauty and uniqueness, especially in the evening. In September 2017, the Triumphal Arch was wrapped in silver blue fabric. As twilight fell, an installation depicting pages of France's great history came to life on it. The spectacle left no one indifferent. Of course, tourists were the luckiest. The idea was conceived by Bulgarian artist Hristo Yavashev. His unparalleled installations are known worldwide. The artist wrapped the Reichstag in fabric, trees in Switzerland, and also erected a curtain in Colorado and on floating piers on Lake Iseo in Italy. And now this marvel was witnessed in Paris. We're not hinting at anything, but perhaps it's worth considering a tourist trip to Paris in September. Who knows? Maybe you'll be lucky. There's a fascinating spot in Paris that we highly recommend visiting. It's called the Wall of Love, situated in the historic part of the French capital. Unlike the well-known landmarks of Paris, it doesn't boast a unique architectural style or a rich historical background. Instead, the Wall of Love is relatively new. It was unveiled in the year 2000, just before the start of the 21st century, bringing a fresh sense of novelty and unexpected vibrancy to the iconic Montmartre neighborhood. The idea for this unique attraction stemmed from the minds of two creative individuals, young composer Frédéric Baron and artist Claire Quito. They envisioned something that would captivate visually, stir emotions, and, as they put it, touch the soul. This last aspect was particularly emphasized by the ambitious creators. To brainstorm ideas for this original landmark in Paris, energetic Frederick enlisted the help of friends from around the globe. Each was kindly asked to translate the heartfelt phrase, "I love you," into their native language. After numerous discussions and bureaucratic hurdles regarding permissions to erect this wall, the work commenced. Soon enough, both Parisians and tourists could marvel at its beauty and uniqueness. Spanning an area of 15.5 square miles, the romantic wall displays declarations of love in white letters against a blue background in 311 languages. Everyone could read the cherished words, "I love you," in their mother tongue. Thus, a passionate proclamation on the wall is accessible in virtually all official languages worldwide. There's even a Braille font for the visually impaired and a schematic sign language. The addition of red heart halves symbolizing reconciliation and lovers' reunion adds a tender touch to this special place. The Wall of Love in Paris is a must-visit destination. It stands out as a unique attraction in the world. Couples often come here to pledge eternal love to one another. On their wedding day, newlyweds invariably make their way here for the same purpose, often capturing countless memorable photos. As we can see, the bold idea of these talented and compassionate individuals has become yet another delightful attraction that enriches Paris. The Wall of Love represents a landmark of the modern era. While it may not be the city's primary attraction, it has undoubtedly become an integral part of the cultural identity of the French capital, fascinating us with the brilliance of simple and understandable concepts. In Paris, complex matters quickly take a back seat. Paris is not just a city. It's a sensation that uplifts and fills one with incredible joy. There's always a desire to express gratitude for such a priceless gift. A special thanks to all those involved, without whom falling in love with Paris at first sight would have been much more challenging. You helped reveal that the streets of the Paris capital are lined with beauty and history. As someone great once said, "When the heavens feel melancholic, they part the clouds and cast their gaze upon Paris." These words encapsulate the essential yet straightforward essence of this remarkable city. Never forget, the always welcoming Paris will astound you with its uniqueness and unveil secrets reserved just for you.
Les étoiles